Let's talk about The House That Jack Built. The House That Jack Built is a 2018 crime drama directed by Lars von Trier. It tells the story of a serial killer who is recounting his disturbing crimes. Originally, Lars planned the idea of The House That Jack Built as a television series, but later he would announce that it would be a film instead. The movie is narrated by the serial killer Jack as he is being guided through the nine circles of hell. He calls his guide Verge, short for Virgil, a nod to the Roman poet who guides Dante through hell in the Divine Comedy. The movie is divided into 5 chapters. All chapters lead up to the end, which takes place at the current, present time, where Jack is recounting his stories to Virgil. The first chapter, or the first incident, involves Jack picking up a stranded woman on the side of the road, dealing with a flat tire. She flags his car down and asks him to take a look at her tire. Jack notices that her car jack is broken and tells her that he will have to notify the nearest shop to get her roadside assistance. He mentions that he knows the shop owner, Sonny, and that he is a blacksmith. The woman insists that he drives her to the shop, and then she gets into his van. On the way to the shop, she makes bizarre comments about Jack being a serial killer and builds up the odd tension between the two. Jack stays silent as she talks about how she could use the car jack to hit him on the head with to escape if he was a serial killer.
Mistake.
Me getting in this car with you. What was it one's mother used to say about not getting into cars with strangers?
Well, I wouldn't know what your mother said.
You might as well be a serial killer.
After Sonny fixes the woman's car jack, they both make their way to the broken down car. Jack begins to lift the woman's car when suddenly the part that Sonny fixed on the car jack snaps completely. Jack angrily tells the woman he has better things to do and attempts to storm off. The woman persists that he takes her back to Sonny for another attempt at assistance. They both get in the van, and instantly the woman begins to provoke Jack, calling him too much of a wimp to murder somebody. He instantly stops the car and then smashes the car jack against her face, killing her.
What I said earlier about you looking like a serial killer? No, no, no. You don't have the disposition for that sort of thing. You're way too much of a wimp to murder anyone.
We then get some more backstory on Jack. We learn that he is or was an engineer who wanted to be an architect, and that he also has OCD. He narrates some more details about himself and reflects on his career as an engineer as he compares the art of architecture to murder. Jack brings the lifeless body of the woman to his walk-in freezer to hide her body. He mentions that there is an extra room he cannot access. The second incident involves Jack clumsily convincing a widowed woman into letting him into her house. He tries to choke her to death but ends up incapacitating her. She eventually attempts to get up off the floor when Jack begins to choke her some more, and then decidingly pulls a knife from his boot and stabs her in the chest. He poses her body on a living room chair, then takes images of her. He collects the negative film, playing on Jack's notion of dark light. He wraps her body in a plastic tarp, places her in his van, then proceeds to clean his crime scene. His OCD takes a toll on him when he returns back to the van. His imagination plagues him with visions of a blood-splattered floor, puddles of blood underneath the light stands and chairs. He rushes back inside to make sure he didn't forget any signs of his acts. He sees nothing but still cleans just in case. His compulsions are so strong that he not only makes the trip from the house to his van in the sake of cleaning not once, but multiple times. Eventually he is thrown from this compulsory loop when he hears sirens from outside. He rushes to his van anxiously as the sirens approach. He runs back inside to check the house once again, when finally the police arrive. Jack watches an officer pull up to a nearby house and exit his vehicle. He rapidly removes the body of a woman he killed and dumps her into the bushes and gets back into his van. The officer is seen getting back into his vehicle and making his way towards Jack. He instructs Jack to get out of the vehicle and then he investigates the back of the van. He tells Jack about a nearby break-in, and then Jack makes up a story about the woman Claire being missing, and the officer investigates the house looking for her. Jack acts bizarre and obnoxious. The officer gets annoyed with him and tells him to leave. Jack runs outside and attaches the body of Claire to his van by a rope and drives off, leaving her body dragging on the road. When Jack reaches his destination, his walk-in freezer, he notices a trail of blood that followed him as he dragged Claire's body through the streets. Virgil makes a comment about the naivete of the police and victim in his story. Jack acknowledges this and states that this part of the story is his point. A sudden downpour of rain washes away the blood trail, erasing the path to Jack in the walk-in freezer, as if some greater power decided to save Jack from punishment. He saw the rain as a blessing, the murder as liberation, and that he had some sort of higher protector. We get more insight into Jack's psychopathy. He mentions how he went to great lengths to fake empathy. He tells Virgil that as a child while playing hide and seek, instead of hiding, he would run through the tall reeds in a panic, leaving a trail following him. Virgil makes a point comparing that to his crimes, alluding to a sort of come and catch me aspect in his actions.
Was there never a tiny grain of disappointment about the great rain that washed away your tracks so you couldn't be caught?
More like amazement. When I think about all the things I've done in my life, without it in any way resulting in punishment.
Jack proceeds to kill another one of his victims by strangulation, this time not so clumsily, as he mentions that through experience he learned how to strangle someone correctly.
Experience had taught me how to strangle correctly, and for long enough.
Bravo, Jack. You certainly are clever and tough.
Jack discusses to Virgil that as he committed more murders, his OCD began to diminish, causing him to take more risks.
When, after several more murders, I felt my OCD diminish, I started to take greater chances.
The photos he took of his latest victim, the woman he strangled, left him dissatisfied. He retrieves her body from the freezer and makes his way back to her apartment where he killed her. On the way to the apartment, he sees a woman walking on the side of the road, and out of impulse, he runs her over, adding her body to the back of his van with the already frozen corpse.
It struck me like lightning from a clear sky. I couldn't resist running that little old lady over. It made my already rather daring plan of bringing the first body back to the scene of the murder in order to take some more inspired photos a great deal more dangerous.
He brings both of the bodies to the apartment and takes new photos. Jack mentions he felt liberated by not being affected by his OCD, not feeling the need to clean the blood from the van or the apartment. The third chapter involves Jack bringing a mother and her two children to an isolated shooting range in the forest. Jack goes on about the rituals of hunting and culling. He teaches one of the boys how to shoot a rifle. The scene takes a turn when suddenly the mother and her children are running in a panic as Jack hunts them down. He looks through the scope of his rifle and guns down the youngest boy as he makes an attempt to escape. The mother rushes to his side and wallows in agony as the other child pops his head out of cover and is also killed by Jack. Jack holds a mock picnic with the mother and her two deceased children and forces her to feed the oldest a slice of pie. She does so in a state of shock. The deceased boys are propped up with sticks. Jack then says the picnic is over and gives the mother a 12-second head start before he hunts her down as well.
9, 10, 11, 12.
After Jack kills her, he poses the bodies alongside crows he hunted as well, akin to the trophy parades and hunting rituals he discussed earlier. Throughout the movie, Jack is supposed to be working on building a house, but is too distracted by his need to kill. We get a montage of him spiraling further into descent and see news clippings of his crimes in which he has been sending the media the images he takes of his victims. The fourth incident involves a woman Jack has been romantic with. He degradingly nicknames her Simple to her disliking. They have a seemingly very toxic relationship, and she constantly feels as if he is going to leave her due to his cruel attitude towards her, especially when they drink. After drinking, Jack belittles her and tells her that he is a serial killer. She calls him weird, and then Jack demands she brings him a magic marker. She does so, and he marks her breast as a surgeon would do to a patient. She calls him weird again and storms out of the apartment, where she comes across a police officer. She tells the officer that Jack has killed people and that she needs help. The officer asks if she's been drinking, and she replies with a yes. Jack stumbles outside and then admits to his crimes, and then sits on the ground and pretends to cry. The officer tells him to stop drinking, and he drives off. Jack, pretending to be distraught and sorry for his behavior, asks Simple, whose real name is Jacqueline, if she forgives him. She says yes, and they both go back up to the apartment. Jack sits on the couch, and Jacqueline says that she can get him pills to help calm him down. She goes to grab her keys, and when she turns around, she sees Jack staring at her with her keys as he corners her against the locked door. You can see the fear in her expression as Jack stares at her like she is his prey. He tells her it'd be a good time to scream, and she begins to yell for help. Jack mocks her and screams with her, yelling for help and that there is a serial killer in the building. He finishes by saying that no one wants to help.
You know, maybe I'm mistaken, but as far as I can tell, not a single light has gone on in any apartment or stairwell. Do you know why that is? Because in this hell of a town, this hell of a country, this hell of a world, nobody wants to help!
He binds and gags her, then mutilates her breast before assumingly kills her. The scene ends with Jack finding a nearby cop car where he leaves one of Jacqueline's cut off breasts on the windshield.
And man, there are always the criminals.
Told you before, this is private property. I want you to leave.
Virgil and Jack discuss art again. They argue over icons and whether or not love is required to create and justify art. Jack believes death is art as well as destruction.
Inclined to give credit to those, no, credit to us, who create the real icons of this planet. We are deemed the ultimate evil. All the icons that have had and always will have an impact on the world are, for me, extravagant art.
Jack gathers a group of hostages to test how many people he can kill with one bullet. He has them all chained by the neck, all their heads lined up in a row for him to execute by rifle. He shows them the full metal jacket round he will use for his experiment when suddenly one of the hostages tells Jack that he was in the military and knows that the round Jack has is not a full metal jacket bullet. Jack tells his hostages that he will be back and rushes to the shop where he bought the ammunition. After berating the shop owner and raising the suspicion of the owner, Jack goes to visit a friend of his named SP. He barges into SP's trailer and is immediately at gunpoint. SP tells Jack that the cops visited him and the gun shop owner Al, and that it's over, and they know of his crimes. Jack asks him what they know of, and SP says it's for robbery, unsuspecting of his murders. SP calls the police and sits Jack down at gunpoint. Jack convinces SP to put the gun down, and then he pours a drink for the both of them. He goes to shake Jack's hand when suddenly he stabs SP in the neck. Jack rummages through SP's belonging, looking for a full metal jacket round, and then waits for the police. Once an officer arrives, Jack murders him and steals his car. Making his way back to the walk-in freezer, with the correct ammunition, Jack loads his rifle and begins to ready his shot. But the sight won't focus due to being so close to his victims. He looks back at the door he was previously unable to open. He finally pries it open and then adjusts his gun. He takes aim, and the scope focuses on his target. And just before he can shoot, Virgil calls his name, distracting him. Virgil asks Jack about the house he was supposed to build. Cops can be heard trying to make their way into the freezer. Virgil tells Jack to build the house and to find the material. Jack proceeds to use all the corpses in his freezer to build a makeshift house when finally the cops make their way in. Virgil makes his way into the house made of Jack's victims and asks Jack if he is coming, presumably letting us know that Jack was most likely dead at this point, probably killed by the cops, and Virgil leads Jack into hell.
Are you coming, Jack?
The last bit of the film is the epilogue, which is Jack's journey through hell via Divine Comedy inspired. Virgil brings Jack to the part of hell where they can see the deepest depths of hell itself. Jack notices a broken bridge and asks what is on the other side. Virgil tells him that it leads up out of hell, and Jack attempts to make it to the other side. He fails and falls into the abyss.